Phil, I know we're live, but it says StreamYard has lost access to our Facebook account. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Fly Tying Monday. Sorry about that little behind the scenes issue there. Phil, it's the UK Facebook for whatever reason. Welcome to Fly Tying Monday. We're going to tie a dry fly today. I hope that this is this the first day of spring. I think it's the first day of spring at about 5 p.m. Eastern time. So we're almost into spring. So I figured it would be reasonable to tie a dry fly today. We haven't tied one in a while. And so we're going to tie one that's actually a new pattern in the Orvis and Fulling Mill offering. And I like it. I like it because because it's very similar to a fly that I tie. So I love the Chubby Chernobyl. That's my go-to fly for dry dropper fishing. For any time I need a big dry fly, if there's hoppers around or whatever, I use the Chubby Chernobyl. But there's times I find when I need a smaller fly, and the Chubby Chernobyl doesn't really scale well into smaller sizes. So what I do is I modify the pattern, and I just put one wing on and one set of rubber legs instead of two wings and two sets of rubber legs and three segments. I put two segments in mine, but I only put on a single wing. Well, this one is a very similar and pattern that has a lot of the same attributes as the Chubby Chernobyl, but it's very much reduced. So you could consider it a reduced Chubby Chernobyl. And so it would be a great prospecting, searching dry fly for particularly for small streams. And a lot of times in small streams, you're fishing a 3-weight or a 4-weight or even a 2-weight because the trout are small and your casts are short. And Chubby Chernobyl is sometimes a little bit much to push with one of these lighter fly rods. And so this is the perfect fly for when you want to scale down in small stream fishing. I think it'll work very well in big rivers as well. I know that when I was in Chile recently, all the grasshoppers were very, very small, and all my imitations were too big. And I could have kicked myself for not tying some smaller hoppers before I went. So you've got a lot of, early in the season when the grasshoppers first start emerging and the little nymph hoppers are running around. This is a perfect imitation for those early hoppers or just small hoppers in general. And I also think, thought I had the fly on there. I also think that this fly would be a good, just general kind of beetle terrestrial imitation, because it's not so hopperish that could just be a hopper. It could be a lot of different kind of terrestrial insects. So it's highly visible, even for a smaller fly. It's highly visible, and it floats well. And it's just got everything you'd want for a small dry dropper or just a small searching, prospecting dry fly. So that's my spiel about this pattern. Anyway, it is called the Barbless Mini Flopper because it's tied on a barbless hook, and I don't know who developed this fly. I'm not sure. Couldn't find anything about who developed it. Anyway, let's start. Phil, do we have any questions? Elaine, if you want to look at the videos that we've done before, you can go onto Facebook and and all of in the Orvis Facebook page, or not Facebook, YouTube is easier to find. On the Orvis YouTube channel, there's a playlist called Tying with Tom, and all the past videos have been archived in there, so you can find that minnow pattern that you're looking for.
No questions so far, Tom.
Okay, Philip, and Julia is still on maternity leave, so Phil's here with us today. Phil Monahan of Orvis News fame. Anyway, let's start. So I'm going to start with a size 12 Barbless Tactical dry fly hook. It's got a nice short shank, and I like this so that I can get a smaller fly, smaller profile, but still a pretty nice wide gap and a good holding barbless hook. A lot of the times fishing these small streams, you want to have a barbless fly so that you can get it out of those small, delicate fish really easily. So I'm starting with a size 12. I tie this down to a size 16, which seems to be fine. And I think it may be as small as you want to go for that. But 12, 14, 16 are probably all good sizes to tie this fly on. And I am going to use tan 6/0 thread. You could use 8/0. I think 12/0 might be a little bit too fine, because you're going to be putting some pressure on the foam. So I start it kind of back from the eye and start my thread. And you do want to cover the shank with thread first. These things tend to roll. The foam tends to roll, especially because you only have one point of application. So there's a couple of things that you can do to make sure that foam stays in place. And then I'm going to take some dry fly dubbing, and you can use any color that you'd like. I like brown or tan, so I'm going to make this one in brown, a little bit dark brown. I'm going to take a little bit of my Spectre Blend dry fly dubbing here. You could use any brown fur that you want, I'm sure. This stuff floats really well, and it dubs very, very easily. And I'm going to dub it on to the thread. And I don't put any taper on here. I just get, see, I got some there, about that amount. Let me just go down a little bit here with the camera so you can see. So about that thickness there. And I'm going to dub about maybe 3 finger widths of dubbing. I may need a little more, but I'm not going to put any taper on it. And then I'm just going to wind that. Leave a little bit of room up at the eye. Don't put any dubbing right up at the eye. And then just nice tight winds of dubbing. And you don't want this too thin. You can have a pretty, well, kind of a substantial body to this thing. This is not a delicate mayfly imitation. It's a terrestrial imitation. And then we're going to stop right about at that point, about a third of the way back from the eye. And now we're going to cut our foam. And I'm going to use tan flat tying foam. And I've got some here that's already been used, but those are too thin. I can use these little in-between things here for smaller flies, but I'm going to need a little bit wider piece of foam. So what I'll do...
Tom, you're out of frame there. We can't see what you're pointing to.
There. How's that? Better?
Better.
Okay. Just flat tying foam. So I'm going to take that and measure about a hook gap. So I'm going to come over to my fly and just, you can eyeball it if you want, but I'll get myself about a hook gap there. And then cutting this foam, it's really nice to have a pair of long scissors because you can take longer cuts. And now I can cut enough for a few flies of the right length. You can use a paper cutter, or, you can use something a little fancier than that. And then I do like to round the end of this just a little bit, or kind of a triangle shape. I'm not very good at... You can use a foam cutter for these and get yourself a little bit cleaner cut, but it's hard to get a foam cutter for a piece this small. But I'm not going to worry too much about it. Just a little bit of a taper on the end there. I'm probably fussing with it more than I should. It's hard to see here, the camera in the way. That's good enough. And then I'll cut this into a shorter piece. And I'll come back to my fly. And this is pretty important on these foam flies. I'm going to put a drop of super glue. Oops, more than a drop. Drop of super glue on top of there. And both the fur underneath and the super glue will help hold this in place. And then kind of center your foam on top of the fly. And you could make it, a little bit longer than the shank, or just the shank length, depending on how big you want that fly to be, what kind of profile you want. Make sure it's centered, and then take 2 very tight, precise turns on that, and maybe a couple more. And now that foam is not gonna rotate afterwards. It's gonna stay put. All right. Now we're gonna put on our wing. And you can use any water shedding type of material. You could use parapost for the wing. I'm going to use, for this first wing, I'm going to use EP trigger point fiber because I like it. I use it a lot. And I'm going to grab fairly substantial amount of this stuff. That's probably too much. A little bit less, maybe right about there. I want to be fairly generous with this wing, I think. And I'm going to cut that into a shorter piece too, just to make it easier to work with. And then I'll save this other piece for my next flies. And then you don't want the wing too long on this. So you just want it just a little, I think a little bit beyond the body. But this helps the visibility on the water. And take a couple of nice tight turns straight down on that wing. I'm going to move my camera up a little bit. And then just like, it's probably a good idea here to spin your bobbin counterclockwise to make your thread jump back a little bit. So I just gave that bobbin a spin. And then fold this other piece back. So I'm taking the long piece and I'm folding it back, and then just kind of creep it forward just a little bit so that you can catch it with your thread, like so. And kind of, I don't think I caught that very well. Give the thread another counter. Sometimes this is a little tricky to get this just right. You don't want to create a lot of bulk here, but you do want to get it over the top of that. Some reason it's not, there we go. Some reason it wasn't behaving for me there. And now you got a wing that won't pull out. And come over with your scissors and cut that wing even with the first one. So now you got a pretty good substantial wing sticking up there. Next.
You ready for a couple of questions, Tommy?
Yeah.
What is the thickness of that foam?
It is whatever thickness Orvis flat fly tying foam is. I don't know. It's the thickness I use.
Does it say on the package?
It does not. It just says flat fly tying foam.
Okay. And then
what? But you know what? I've got a caliper here. I'll measure it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I got to go into my drawer here. Okay.
Look, most people are guessing 2 millimeter.
They're wrong. It's 1.8 millimeter.
Oh, what a dare. If you were to use 2 millimeter, this fly would not work at all.
Oh, it would not work at all. No, it would be.
The other question was, what color is that wing material you're using?
Oh, good question. Now, it could be anything. I don't like pure white on these because I think it's just not natural. This is a color that I really love. It's called, this is a color that I really love. It's called pale morning dun, and it's kind of a grayish tan. But I think you could tie this. I've seen this wing tied in gray. I've seen it tied in tan. I've seen it tied in brown. I don't think the exact color is that important. I think it's important that it's a fairly light color so it shows up on the water. Yeah, I really like this trigger point pale morning dun color.
And you did say earlier that poly yarn would work, right?
Poly yarn will work, yeah. Any kind of yarn that you put on a Chubby Chernobyl. EP fiber. What else is there? Poly yarn, Parapost, macrame yarn. You know, get some. Macrame yarn is polypropylene. You can buy some macrame yarn and comb it out. That makes a really, really high floating wing.
Okay, and Austin from Idaho wants to know if you have much luck with this pattern during the spring.
It's better toward late spring and summer because it's a terrestrial, right? So I mean, fish will eat beetles all year long, and it might work early in the spring, but I would say it's probably going to work better toward the summer. Although, you know, it could be a small stonefly too. You know, this could even be a squala. I think fish would take this during the squala. So yeah, maybe it would work well in the spring.
And
I don't know.
Laurent wants to know if you ever use a lighter to shape the foam edges.
No, but that's probably a good idea. It's probably a good idea. Maybe I'll try it. Yeah.
Okie doke. That's it. Proceed.
Okay. So now I'm going to put a little cider post on here, and I'm going to use Parapost because it comes in these. It doesn't show up that well on camera, but it is a really bright chartreuse, and you could also, if you want, use a bright red or orange or something like that, depending on the the waters you fish. I tie some in chartreuse, and I tie some in bright red, pink, anything that shows up pretty well. And then I'm going to double this over. So I'm going to get 2 strands of this. On a 16 and a 14, I just use 1 strand of Parapost. But on this size 12, I'm going to use a double strand. It kind of comes in strands when you buy it. And then I'm going to, I like to kind of even these out. Like so. And then back to the fly. And this piece, I don't want this to show to the fish too much because it's kind of an unnatural color. So I only make it about half the length of the wing. So I'm going to tie that in the same way that I did the other wing. And this stuff I find this stuff tends to roll off to the far side. So you just want to be careful that it doesn't roll to the far side. And then I'm catching it just like I did that other piece. And then I'll cut this. So you got a nice little cider there. And you can make this cider a little bit smaller and maybe only use 1 piece of yarn, but boy, you hate to lose sight of these prospecting flies, particularly if you're fishing dry drop or you really want to be able to see them all the time. So I put a pretty good chunk of yarn on there. All right, now we're going to do the legs. And I'm going to use silicone flutter legs in brown. I am sure that you could use any color that your little heart desires, but I like brown. Black would work, maybe white, who knows, orange. But I'm going to use a brown one. So I'm just going to take this and take 1 piece. So I got 1 rubber leg there. That's all I need is 1. Even though it's going to have 4 legs. Insects have 6 legs. This fly is only going to have 4 legs. Ugh. This fly is not going to work. And then to tie the leg on the far side, I like to turn the vise so that I can see that far side. And that leg's got a little kink in it. I don't like it. I'm going to cut it off. There. Not that it matters. And then I'm just going to decide the length of my rear leg, which I guess I want to be about there. And I'm going to take a couple of turns and just attach that to the far side. And then kind of wiggle it to get it in position. And then I'm going to turn my fly back right side up, or up, not sideways. And I'm going to hold that against the near side, take a couple kind of light turns, adjust my legs to get them where I want them, and then take a couple of tight turns to secure them. And now I can just cut this loop And maybe sometimes helps to turn it sideways. Cut this one, cut this one. Sort of even. Doesn't really matter. So that you got fairly balanced legs there. And then I'm gonna.
You ready for a question?
Yeah, sure.
Keith wants to know, is it true that silicone legs don't deteriorate like round rubber legs?
That's true. Yeah, they don't. It's hard. I think it's hard to find true rubber legs these days, because they do deteriorate. If you have them laying around for a while, they start to fall apart and get sticky, and they deteriorate. And silicone doesn't have that same problem. So yeah, I think most of the rubber legs you buy these days are silicone.
And Warren wants to know if you could use darker foam.
You can use any color of foam your little heart desires. Absolutely. Why not? Why not? I don't think there's anything magic about tan. I just like my Chubby Chernobyls and hoppers with tan foam, but I'm thinking sometimes brown might be better, because sometimes hoppers are pretty dark, especially when they're little. So it might be a good idea to try a different color. Other questions?
That's it for now.
Okay. All right. Now to form the head, just kind of fold that foam back, and it should be right about over the eye. You can make it longer or shorter if you wanted. And then just come straight down on top of this. Be careful you don't tie down your rubber legs. Couple of 3 or 4 really good tight turns. And then I like to come in and cut this as close as I can. And that's what it's going to look like, sort of. And then to finish it off, to make it look neat, you could finish it right here if you wanted to. I'm going to take a couple of more turns to bind that foam down. Make sure my wing sticks up the way I want it. And then just take a little more dubbing, really thin in this case, just barely get your thread dirty. And all you're doing is covering up the thread wraps here. So really thin and tight. You see that? Yeah. Probably about 2 to 3 finger widths of dubbing here. And then take a turn of dubbing and then turn it over, because the idea here is to kind of cover up these thread wraps if you can. So maybe 3 turns, and then I need a little more, because when I cross this thread over here, I don't want it to show. Again, doesn't matter to the fish, but it matters to me. So I got a little bit more dubbing on there. And then you're going to cross in front, pull back on that head, and just wind whatever dubbing you got left to form a little head there. So it looks like that. So your thread's not showing underneath. So that's the way it looks. Then whip finish, and you're done. So for a foam fly, fairly simple. Easy, quick. They're quick, easy to tie. And again, you can tie them small. And I'll use the same size foam. Even on a 16, I'll still use the same size foam, and it doesn't look I do use finer rubber legs. Here, I'll actually show you. So here's some of my practice flies. You can see on the 16s, I've got smaller rubber legs. I have to hold this a little further away. You can see on the 16s, the little bit finer rubber legs. The 16s are over here, but that same size foam works okay on the 16s.
Ready for a few questions?
I am ready.
Can you use the EP fiber for the hot spot as well?
Yes, you can use the EP fiber for the hotspot. I don't find that I can get it in as super bright colors as that Parapost. The Parapost has some fluorescent properties to it, and it really reflects the light back. And I just find I haven't found an EP fiber color that is quite as bright as either that chartreuse or the other color is this one here, fire orange. That's really super bright too. And I just haven't found an EP fiber that is that bright. And that's the reason I use the Parapost.
Okay. Would GSP thread help for strength for tying on the foam?
I would avoid GSP thread. I think it might cut the foam. You don't need it. I mean, 6.0 or 8.0 will work on this foam. You can put a lot of pressure on it. And I think you may find that GSP thread will cut through the foam. So I wouldn't. You can try it. Give it a try, but I think it's going to cut through the foam.
And then finally, two folks wanted to know if you put floatant on this when you're fishing.
I put floatant on everything. I put floatant on my nymphs. No, I would put floatant on it. Yeah. Because it's got, the rubber legs themselves don't float. The silicone legs, they don't float. So they could use a little floatant, and the dubbed body can absorb water. So yeah, I would put floatant on this. Definitely. I want this thing, I want this sucker to float all day long. And I put the white desiccant powder on these. Phil, you fish with me. I put that white desiccant powder on about every dozen casts.
Yep.
Because I want to see them.
Edward says, try Congo hair. More available colors and less expensive.
Congo hair? I never heard of it.
And let's see. Green wants to know if you could use this as a golden stone pattern with yellow foam.
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. Longer shank hook probably, because golden stones have a longer proportional body. So you might want to use a 3X long nymph hook or a 2X long dry fly hook for a golden stone. I think the proportions would look better there.
Buster wants to know, is it easier to pinch foam to tie it tighter?
I don't know. I just put a lot of pressure on it with the thread. Pinch it. I don't know. I don't think so.
I guess you probably compress it and then tie it, maybe? Is that what you
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't have any trouble. I mean, this foam, this flat foam that Orvis sells just behaves really well. The thread doesn't cut it. It compresses well. It ties in well. It's very super durable.
Let's see. Edward says that Congo hair is from Fly Tire's Dungeon.
I don't even know who Fly Tire's Dungeon is.
Don't start Googling that, Tom.
No, I won't.
And,
would high vis be okay for the wing? Yeah, I think high vis is like Parapost. Yep. anything, anything that's bright enough, anything that's really super bright that you're going to be able to see on the water will work. Yeah, if your foam is not behaving well, Buster, then you, I don't know, you might, are you using GSP thread? This foam that I've been using works very, very well. I don't have any problem with it. War Dog 7621 wants me to win next week. Well, I better start practicing. So next week, we have a tie-off with Tim Flagler, and we're tying a sculpin, kind of a jig sculpin pattern. It is called Keslar's Mini Gulp Sculpin, and you can actually see that. It's in the Orvis offering. So we're tying off on that fly. So we'll see what happens there. How much would this fly sell for at a fly shop? I don't know. What's a dry fly these days? I don't buy flies, so how much is a dry fly, Phil? You're muted.
I don't buy flies either. I steal them from you.
No.
I don't know. I mean, they're not all the same price. We
two-
are in the
two or
midst
three
of our
bucks.
giant fly sale right now. So whatever they are, they're 20% off.
Right. Whatever they sell for, they're 20% off. But this is not an expensive or highly complicated fly. So you can look it up. You can look it up on the Orvis website and see how much it costs. It'll be more than $1, Green. It'll definitely be more than $1. Are there any internships open at Orvis right now? Blake, I'd advise you to contact careers at Orvis. We don't really know about the internships. Can you work some carp flies in sometime? Says Roger Bird. Well, Roger, I love carp fishing, but I'm not so sure how popular carp flies are. We've tied a couple in the past. But we'll see. Maybe this summer we'll do some carp flies. Joe, sorry, I don't sell flies, but Orvis sells lots of flies, so you can get them from Orvis. I don't sell flies and I don't sell chocolate. Sorry. All right. Any other questions? Again, it's a nice, easy fly. If you're just starting out tying foam flies, this is a really good one to start with because it is not difficult. All right, we have another vote for carp flies. Okay, we'll do a carp flies sometime this spring. I promise.
Apparently, only guys named Roger fish for carp.
Right. Yeah. Maybe I should change my name to Roger. Roger Rosenbauer. Oh, that'd be a good one. All right, everyone. Well, we will see you next week, same time, 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. Eastern time on these same channels with my nemesis, Tim Flagler, who's been off for a month, going to all the shows. Probably a lot of you have seen Tim, and he is Fly Tire of the Year from Fly Tire Magazine. So I got my work cut out for me. But we'll have fun regardless. We'll have fun anyway. Okay, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And if you were new, or if you're new, if you've never been here before with one of our fly tying sessions, welcome. I hope you come back. Hope you learned something, and see you next week.